And as part of this, Senator Shumlin, if there were a new owner, would it change the equation for them? Lieutenant Governor Dubie?
Well, thanks for the question. It's a privilege to be able to clarify the $300,000 of ads that are being projected across the state of Vermont in response to that question. The vote that happened in the Vermont Senate was not to should Vermont Yankee be relicensed for 20 years. The vote was, should the question be sent to the Public Service Board? The Public Service Board was created 30 years ago by the General Assembly to address technically complex issues. They have tools that the General Assembly doesn't have. They can take testimony under oath. It's a higher legal standard. So I would have voted, when asked how I would have voted to send that question to the Public Service Board. For many of the questions that we've already discussed, the decommissioning fund, the terms of the contract, what is the technical risk as evaluated by experts, giving the General Assembly the right to up or down vote after the analysis of the Public Service Board. My commitment is, before I hand a pink slip to a mom or a dad of the 650 people who work in Vermont Yankee, I'm going to be able to look them in the eye and say, I did my job, I evaluated all the data, and this is the conclusion that we have come to.
Senator Shumlin, new owner question?
Let me just quickly respond to Brian's question because I'm puzzled by that answer. I'm puzzled because when I wasn't in the legislature for 4 years, the legislature passed a bill which Governor Douglas signed, which Lieutenant Governor Dubie supported, and which Entergy Louisiana supported, that gave the legislature the authority to vote affirmatively on relicensure before the Public Service Board could act. That's what the law says. Why, Brian, I would ask, since you supported that bill, would you now say that that wasn't the right way to go? The time to oppose that was at the time, not in hindsight, when you realized that the legislature didn't have the votes to act affirmatively. So I think you've got to be consistent as governor. I've been consistent, I'll continue to be. We should retire Vermont Yankee on schedule in 2012 and move to wind, solar, biomass, wind, small hydro. We have a really bright energy future. Energy, Hydro-Quebec, we just signed a great contract with them. There's plenty of juice on the market. Let's be smart. Let's create jobs in Vermont.
All right, let me just take another minute on this round. Lieutenant Governor Dubie.
You know, we had a tritium leak. I acknowledge the legislature it is. I had advocated during the General Assembly, in light of all the technical questions as it related to a violation of the trust that the workers and the people of Vermont, the government, the General Assembly had placed in Entergy Louisiana, when they made misstatements about pipes or not pipes or all these other clouds came into the atmosphere of this question. It would be my hope that we could sort through these technical questions. The Attorney General is in the midst of a criminal investigation as we speak and as we conduct this debate. I trust the Attorney General to do his due diligence, do his job, the job that we elected him to do. So in light of a lot of issues that are raised, that came as a result of the leak, I think it's a reasonable course of action for the Public Service Board to do their job.
I would just ask Brian, what part of the Attorney General's investigation do we not understand? They said there were no pipes under oath. Pipes leaked. They had highly radioactive substances in the pipes. So what question is there left? They said no pipes. We wished it was true. Arnie Gunderson, who I appointed to the Oversight Committee, said there are definitely pipes there. Nobody would listen. Suddenly there was a leak. A bad leak. It wasn't just tritium. Wish it was. Cobalt, cesium, strontium-90. Let's talk about strontium-90. Gets into the bones of living organisms, like children. Has a 28.5-year half-life and causes leukemia and cancer. It kills you. This is not something that you would want in the waters of Lake Champlain, in the groundwater in Chittenden County, any more than we do in Windham County. They didn't tell the truth. The pipes existed. They leaked. I don't need the Attorney General report to tell me what to do. Send it to Louisiana, back to Louisiana.
Decommissioning fund, Senator Shumlin, you just mentioned you felt it's inadequate. How inadequate, and what will you do to beef it up?
Extraordinarily inadequate because of the leak. We have now passed 2 bills to the Douglas Dubie administration in the legislature with the help of Speaker Smith, who's here, and a lot of legislators in this room. They've both been vetoed. They would have required Energy Louisiana to keep their promise to Vermonters and either fill it up or sign securities agreeing that they would when the time comes. The estimate for decommissioning was $1 billion pre-leak. In most plants that have had similar leaks, it is as much as double the cost of decommissioning. So we know it's $600 million short pre-leak. After leak, it could be anywhere from $600 million to $1.6 billion. That's a lot of money. Energy Louisiana, make no mistake about it, I made this judgment. As governor, I will fight for you. They want Vermont to pay that bill. If I'm governor, they will pay that bill.
Lieutenant Governor Dubie?
But for the record, safety is always going to be the premier consideration when considering the future of Vermont Yankee. I have read the Public Oversight report. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, as appointees from President Obama, has this responsibility. Obviously, I'm concerned about a tritium leak and other leaks, and whatever the lack of trust that has developed as a result of misstatements that were made by Energy Louisiana. As I say, the Attorney General will hold them accountable. He will do his job. I believe in an investigation. He is in the midst of doing it. As far as the decommissioning fund, this is a perfect example where the Public Service Board could do the analysis for what the shortcoming as a result of the leak, what that amount is. The decommissioning fund was negotiated as a part of the sale. I would, as Vermont's next governor, ensure that Vermonters are protected and making sure that the decommissioning fund is adequate. It has to be consistent with what was negotiated, and as a result of the leak, that has to be revisited. So I agree with those principles.
President Obama has talked about expanding nuclear power nationally. Do you support that effort to expand nuclear power nationally? Lieutenant Governor Dubie?
Yes, I do. If we consider climate change and the implications of energy security, national security, growing energy options that don't generate carbon dioxide, CO2 in our state and in our nation, I think energy, nuclear power has to be one of those considerations. I applaud President Obama for making resources available. I think they're first going to the state of Georgia. I think there's an opportunity for the next generation of nuclear power to be considered for our nation in the appropriate place. I think nuclear waste has to be a consideration, but from a national security, environmental security, economic security, I think it is, and as I read environmentalists who talk about the attributes, I think President Obama is on the right course, has a right direction in that regard.
Senator Shumlin?
Well, Mark, this is what I'll have in common with President Obama if I'm elected governor. A huge challenge with multiple challenges on multiple fronts that someone's got to hit the ground running really fast to solve. Joblessness, lack of hope, an energy policy that hasn't existed for 8 years that we need to develop, cleaning up Lake Champlain, putting Vermonters back to work, feeding our homeless, the list goes on and on. So this is what I'm going to do. I promise as governor, if you elect me, that I'm going to focus on the real challenges that we have before us where I can really make a difference. There has not been a new nuclear power plant built in America since the 1970s. I was a child. I'm going to focus on the real problems that Vermont faces. We can't even cite a landfill in this state, and there's never been a plant built in the 50 states in almost 40 years. Let's focus on what we have to do. Build wind, solar, biomass, small hydro, renewables, efficiency. Let's get the job done together. I'm going to focus on what I can control, and that's it.
Do you believe that the amount of carbon that goes into the atmosphere should be regulated? Senator Shumlin? Carbon dioxide.
You know, this is where I am on carbon regulation and everything related to climate change. I find it astounding that as a society, we sit here as the biggest consumer of energy, the greediest country on energy in the world, and act as if we have a lot of time to solve this problem. We don't. When I committed the legislature looking at climate change, there was 2 reasons. The first was, it kind of seems like the future of the planet is a big one to me. I think that's a big one. Now, the Dubie Douglas